Right, so dodgy PPE contracts during COVID and the sheer waste of public money by the Tories during that time is hardly a recent story. But the fact people are still talking about it today shows how dragged out holding some of those to blame to account has been, from the Eat Out to Help Out pandemic spreader event that cost us £850 million, thanks to our now Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, to Dido Harding blowing £37 billion on test and trace, seemingly with nothing to show for it, to again Rishi Sunak having written off £4.3 billion in pandemic-related fraud, amongst other write-offs, which would go a long way right now to sorting out some much-needed pay rises elsewhere in the public sector. But it's the £10 billion wasted in defective PPE and the involvement of Tory peer Baroness Michelle Mone of Mayfair and her billionaire husband Douglas Barrowman that's become a major discussion topic now. But why? Michelle Mone made her fortune in Freddie Knickers, her lingerie company Ultimo, along with peddling fake tan and diet pills as well. Pills which the British Dietetic Association added to their annual list of celeb diets to avoid for 2015 because it was total bollocks. You also had to reduce your caloric intake to just 1,500 calories, which will make you lose weight anyway. Snake oil springs to mind, but it also gives you an inkling that this is the sort of person that might be prepared to make a quick buck out of anything, to which end she also tried her hand in literally making up money by launching her own cryptocurrency called Equi, which ended up a complete flop too. Making a quick buck out of anything, it is alleged, also includes the Tory VIP lane for PPE, personal protective equipment contracts, during the pandemic. It's essentially another Tory sleaze row where ministers and MPs could refer certain companies to supply PPE, and that ensured they were treated more favourably as potential suppliers. It was sold as a means of fast-tracking PPE supply, when of course we remember the Tories left this country totally unprepared for a pandemic, having essentially lost the guidance that had been in place for so many years for such things, binned like so much else in the name of austerity. This VIP lane was a completely illegal thing to do. It meant people and businesses who weren't necessarily suitable could be recommended. And of course, we know this led to vast amounts of money being spent on PPE that couldn't be used, woefully inadequate as it was. The person behind it is currently eating kangaroo testicles in Australia, as if he didn't talk a load of balls before. And apparently the public love him so much now, he might actually win the show. Sometimes I wonder if this country doesn't deserve half the shit that happens to it. Matt Hancock was the man behind this and made his fair share of recommendations to that VIP lane too. 47 firms with political connections to the Tories, basically, were offered a combined £4.7 billion via this route, a third of all PPE procurement, and all at the recommendation of a Tory minister or a Tory MP or a Tory peer. And this is where Michelle Mone comes in, having been made a Tory peer just a month before her diet pill scandal back in October of 2015. Though with an attendance rate at the House of Lords of just 12%, it's little wonder she's been referred to as the layabout lady of Mayfair, and subsequent calls for her to resign her peerage on that basis alone. She referred the company PPE MedPro via Michael Gove and a fellow peer, Lord Agnew, both of whom had made their own additional referrals via this illegal VIP lane as well. PPE MedPro subsequently got awarded £203 million to provide face masks and surgical gowns. Now, PPE MedPro has a chap called Anthony Page as a director. Page was a former secretary at a company called MGM Media. No, nothing to do with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the movie company, more Michelle Georgina Mone, Michelle Mone's personal branding company. He's also a director of Knox House Trust, which is part of the Knox Group, which is owned and run by Michelle Mone's husband, Douglas Barrowman. Can we all spell conflict of interest here? Well, this rabbit hole goes a little bit deeper yet. Mone's referral of PPE MedPro happened 5 days before it had even registered as a company. Begging the question, was this company set up specifically to make money out of the pandemic and the need for PPE? And reinforcing that thinking is the fact that 25 million surgical gowns supplied by PPE MedPro, worth around £122 million of public money, were thrown away after failing inspection. The biggest scandal of all, however, is the discovery that Michelle Mone and her children received £29 million between them, originating from PPE MedPro, following these contracts via offshore accounts. If the paper trail isn't straightforward, then somebody has something to hide. Mone has not declared any money originating from PPE MedPro in the Lord's Register of Financial Interests, and this has been defended on the basis that she did not benefit financially, and nor was she connected to PPE MedPro in any way. Well, we already know of a personal connection via Anthony Page, but let's explore that financial link a little. Mone's husband, Douglas Barrowman, is a financier based on the Isle of Man, no doubt for tax purposes. Leaked documents from HSBC have revealed that Barrowman was paid £65 million of profits from PPE MedPro and distributed this through a variety of other offshore accounts, trusts and companies. And one such trust, also set up on the Isle of Man, was for the benefit of Michelle Mone and her children, Mone being Barrowman's then fiancée. And the amount transferred was just shy of £29 million. HSBC has joined the dots between PPE MedPro, who Michelle Mone recommended as a supplier before they were even a registered company, who then sent some £65 million to the fiancé of Michelle Mone, who then transferred a large wage of that to a trust of which Michelle Mone was a beneficiary. With one of Barrowman's employees also being a director of this company, there very much are massive questions to answer when this appears to have been a blatant arrangement to profit out of the pandemic without even supplying the damned equipment that was needed that another company, not privileged by Tory links, may have provided, which would meet the requirements and which could have helped save lives. HSBC at several points actually froze the accounts in question pending investigations, to which Mone apparently said to them at one point that the frozen accounts were damaging to PPE MedPro. Well, if she has no interest in the company, then how could that be? This should be across the front pages of every paper in the land, not just a few like the Financial Times or iNews, not just cropping up on social media in discussions. And it should be on every news bulletin, along with ministers being hammered for answer over this on every channel. As always, when it's the Tories, though, the scrutiny is always lacking. This is arguably one of the most shocking examples of PPE and government money being abused and wasted during the pandemic to date. Some £9 billion has been written off just relating to PPE money we could really do with right now, so we aren't feeling so much pain during this cost of living crisis as it continues on and on. Money the Tories won't chase either. We should be demanding they get our money back. Instead, they've passed a new procurement bill, which means they can carry on wasting billions more in public money, showing they've learned absolutely nothing and are intent on carrying on their corrupt practices still further, all whilst we tighten our belts, get told to switch off to fight Putin, and have apparently even admitted they'd do it all again if we ended up in another pandemic, because guess what, folks? They'll find the money again for that, all whilst they tell us there's no money to be had to help us now. This is sickening to the stomach. Michelle Mone, if she had any decency, would resign her peerage, but I don't think she does, so I don't think she will. There is a petition going around demanding she be stripped of it, and that really should be the bare minimum. It should be just for starters. Patients died. NHS staff gave their lives too for want of decent equipment to do their jobs in many cases. And she appears to have blatantly had interest in a company she put forward through an illegal VIP lane and made millions whilst others suffered and people died. If you're more angry right now about nurses going on strike than you are about this, then I can only assume you still watch the BBC in some vain pretense that they're informing you as they continue to go to seemingly great pains to avoid this national scandal completely, no doubt under orders from the Tories in charge, or you do know about it and you suffer from lacking an essential part of your soul. Demand answers from your MP about what they're doing or saying about this. This can't be allowed to be swept away. There needs to be justice at some point, because you can't have actions such as these going unpunished. It'll just happen all over again without any consequences then either.